The first rule of the wilderness is that you make noise to scare away the predators, but nobody tells you what to do when the predator starts making noise back. They called us the Three Musketeers since college. Me, my brother Mark, and our friend Liam. For 10 years, we'd taken an annual camping trip to reconnect, but this year was different. We needed an escape. My divorce was final, Mark was burning out from his law firm, and Liam was always up for an adventure. We chose the Black Ridge Wilderness precisely because it was notorious for being rugged and remote. The park ranger had warned us about black bears and cougars, but we were experienced. We'd done our research, packed the proper gear, and felt prepared for anything nature could throw at us. The hike in was breathtaking. Sunlight filtered through the dense canopy of pine and fir, painting the forest floor in shifting patterns of gold and shadow. The air smelled of damp earth and pine sap, a scent that always cleared my head. We followed the winding trail deeper than we'd ever gone before, crossing crystal-clear streams and navigating rocky outcrops. By late afternoon, we found the perfect spot, a flat clearing beside a rushing creek, surrounded by ancient, moss-covered trees. It felt like our own private cathedral. We set up camp with practiced efficiency. 2 tents, a proper fire pit ringed with stones, and our food hung high in a bear bag between 2 trees. As the sun dipped below the ridges, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, we cracked open our beers and cooked dinner over the open fire. The conversation flowed easily, filled with laughter and the comfortable silence of old friends. For the first time in months, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. The change was subtle at first. As true darkness fell, the usual nighttime symphony of the forest, the crickets, the frogs, the distant calls of owls, suddenly cut out. The silence was absolute, heavier than any noise. Liam, trying to lighten the mood, joked, "Guess we're not welcome here." We laughed, but it was strained. Mark, ever the logical one, suggested an approaching storm or a large predator passing through. We built the fire higher, its crackle suddenly loud and defensive in the unnatural quiet. The first knock came around 9 p.m. A single, sharp crack that echoed from the ridge directly across the creek. It sounded like 2 large rocks being smashed together with tremendous force. We all fell silent, staring into the impenetrable wall of trees. "Falling branch," Mark declared, but his voice lacked conviction. We resumed talking, but our attention was fractured, our ears straining. 10 minutes later, another knock. Crack. This one came from further down the same ridge. It was moving. My skin began to crawl. This wasn't random. We doused the fire, plunging ourselves into a darkness so complete I could barely see my hand in front of my face. The sliver of moon offered little comfort. We decided to retreat to our tents and wait for dawn. The plan was simple: stay quiet, stay hidden. I zipped myself into the tent with Mark, our breathing loud in the confined space. Liam was a dark shape slipping into his own tent a few feet away. For what felt like an eternity, there was only the sound of the creek and the frantic beating of my own heart. Then the footsteps started. They weren't the light, cautious steps of a deer or the heavy tread of a bear. These were bipedal, humanoid. A slow, deliberate crunch, crunch, crunch of someone or something walking a slow circle around our campsite. It completed one circuit, then another, each lap feeling closer than the last. I could hear twigs snapping under its weight. Mark and I lay frozen, our eyes wide in the blackness. I heard the faint, terrified whisper from Liam's tent. "You guys hearing this?" The humming began around midnight, a low, guttural, tuneless vibration that seemed to emanate from the trees just beyond our clearing. It was the most alien sound I'd ever heard, Not animal, not human, but something in between. It would hum for a minute, stop for 5, then start again from a slightly different location. It was studying us, testing us. The footsteps continued their patrol, sometimes synchronizing with the hum, sometimes moving independently. There was more than one of them. The climax of our terror came at 2:17 a.m. The humming stopped, the footsteps ceased. The silence was somehow worse. Then a new sound. A soft scraping noise against the fabric of our tent. It was right outside my head. I could see a tall, impossibly thin silhouette against the nylon, cast by the faint starlight. It stood there, motionless for what felt like an eternity. I could hear a faint, wet breathing sound. That's when Liam broke. He screamed, "Get away from us!" and unzipped his tent in a frantic rush, brandishing his heavy Magdalite like a club. The silhouette vanished instantly. For one heart-stopping second, there was utter silence. Then, from the trees just beyond Liam's now empty tent, the humming started again. But this time, it was different. It was sharper, higher-pitched. It was angry. Liam scrambled into our tent, his face a mask of pure panic. The three of us huddled together, listening to the thing outside begin a new, more aggressive pattern. It started knocking stones together again, but faster now, a staccato rhythm that felt like a taunt. We could hear it moving through the undergrowth, circling us, sometimes letting out a low growl that was definitely not a bear. It was playing with us. We were trapped prey, and it was the cat. The rest of the night was an eternity of terror. We didn't sleep a wink. We sat back to back in the tent, clutching our knives and flashlights, listening to our tormentor patrol our camp. Just before dawn, as the blackness began to soften to gray, the sounds finally ceased. We waited another hour until the forest was fully lit by the morning sun before we dared to unzip the tent. The scene that greeted us was chilling. Our camp was trashed. Our backpacks had been slashed open with something sharp, their contents strewn about. Our food cache had been cut down from the trees and scattered, but not a single item was eaten. It wasn't theft or hunger. It was a message, a display of power. We packed what little we could salvage in a terrified, silent frenzy, and hiked out as fast as our shaking legs could carry us. We didn't stop for 12 miles. We filed a report with the park rangers. They found no footprints, no hair, no sign of any animal. They officially listed it as a probable bear encounter, despite us insisting it wasn't. We knew the truth. We had been hunted, not for food, but for sport. I moved to the city 6 months later. I can't stand the silence of the suburbs, let alone the woods. But the worst part, sometimes late at night, when the city is quiet, I'll hear a faint guttural hum from the alley below my apartment window. And I know, in my bones, that we didn't just leave something behind in those woods. Something followed us home.